Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We have people rolling in, so we'll just give it a couple minutes. Okay, perfect. I see people still rolling in. I know we only have an hour together, so I want to just jump right in. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about speed to lead and building authentic human connections. I'm really excited to have all of my awesome panelists today. Just briefly, I'm Lauren Ellison. I work with Lead Squared, and I'm a enterprise customer success manager. And we have Jennifer, Stephanie, and Jay here. Jennifer's from Ancora, Stephanie's from Level Becker, and Jay's from Lincoln Tech, and I'm going to hand it over to them to introduce themselves as well. And as you're introducing yourself, please answer a little icebreaker question for me, if you will. If you had to teach a class on one thing, what would it be? And Jennifer, if you could kick it off, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
hi everyone, and thanks, Lauren. If I could teach one class, I think that I would teach third grade math. That's kind of where I fell off the wagon on really loving math, but I have since come to understand and appreciate it. So I think I'd go back to third grade math and help all those struggling students there. So that's my answer to the icebreaker. But as I was introduced, I'm with Ancora Education. I have over 15 years of experience in transforming operations and elevating that customer service. And the majority of that has been in the education space. I like to use strategic vision and a lot of operational expertise to do so. And I have a very deep commitment to fostering genuine human connections, especially in today's complex customer service landscape, which is why we're all here today. I've really focused in my career on cost savings, operational efficiencies, empowering my teams to really have the type of interactions and connections that our students and customers want. And, you know, been through a lot of change, right? There are constantly things going on in the space and constantly things that we need to adapt to and adjust to. So really excited to be here and appreciate the audience.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Stephanie.
Thanks. I think if I had to teach a class, it would be on automating your life. I have gone through and automated as much as I can in Google Sheets, whether it's our Little League calendars or our fall summer schedules. Try to automate and make my life as easy as possible. So I would love to teach that to the rest of my family so that they can be as quick to work through life as I am. But I'm Stephanie McGinnis, Client Service Director over at Level. I've been in EDU marketing now for 20 years, have been on the school side, the media side, and in the last several years on the agency side, partnering with Ancora as of late in helping manage their digital media buys, as well as working on all marketing operations with their admissions team. So that's about it.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephanie. And Jay.
Yes, thank you, Lauren, and thank you for inviting me to the webinar today. So I'll do it in reverse here. So I am Jay Rasmussen. I am the Senior Vice President of Admissions with Lincoln Tech. I've been in the industry for about 30 years. I started off as a rep and went through all of the career progression paths to be a director, campus president, VP of admissions, and SVP of admissions. Currently have about 300 plus employees that work for me on the admission side of the house with Lincoln Tech. As for the class that I think I would teach, I'd like to teach probably how we should approach an inquiry or a prospect in a little better fashion, meaning no preconceived notions about whether they can or cannot attend, whether they're too far or not close enough, etc. And then I would also like to teach with that how to listen better and more appropriately to what the customer wants. Instead of you going down some preconceived notion of direction, I think it's better that you listen to what they want and how fast they want to go through the process or slow they want to go through the process, and change your skill set based on that. So thank you, Lauren.
I love that. Thank you. And we're going to dive deeper into that topic a little later, so I can't wait to hear more. Just a few housekeeping items before we jump in. Everyone is currently muted. If you need to change your audio devices or adjust the volume, you can check out the settings gear. And we will have a few polls throughout the webinar, so please answer and submit, and I'll read the results after that, but just want to get an understanding of where you all are coming from. And then if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat function and we will answer them during our Q&A session later. So today, as we already teased, we're going to be talking about speed to lead and really the role of human engagement and building strong relationships on top of speed to lead, right? Like we have a bunch of experts on the call today. I'm really excited to hear about their experience in admissions and get their insight into how we craft these personalized experiences and how do you manage those when you have a super high lead volume, right? And then finally, just understanding the impact of these meaningful interactions. What kind of metrics can we look at? How can we measure ROI? So let's jump in. Okay, perfect. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, I want to discuss what speed to lead means to all of our panelists. And I love for Jennifer to kick us off. What does speed to lead mean to you? How are you looking at speed to lead right now?
Yeah, of course. Speed to lead to me is from the moment that someone expresses an interest in learning more about, in our case, our school or program, how quickly we're able to engage with them and respond to them in a modality that is preferable to them. In some cases, it's phone call. In some cases, it's a text message, could be a chat interaction, but it's engaging with that customer when they're ready to talk as quickly as we possibly can.
That's awesome. Stephanie, does that align with how you think of speed to lead?
It definitely aligns. One of my very first projects as a marketing analyst in EDU was testing a theory 20 years ago about if speed to lead makes an impact on your enrollment rates. And I was tasked with tracking weekly enrollment rates at over 120 campuses. And we rolled out a strategy that we were calling our old internet leads back in the day. And in the time that it would take to pop a bag of popcorn, could you contact a lead in the time it took to pop a bag of popcorn, whether that's 2 minutes or 2:17, whatever you put on your microwave. But we saw obviously immediate impacts to that. So definitely aligned with Jennifer there.
Very cool. I love that analogy. And Jay, just curious, are you aligned, or do you look at speed to lead differently?
Very similar, and I'll just add a caveat after the speed to lead, which we enhance ours with obviously automations in the background. But it's not only the automation that goes out, whether it's a text message or an email or what have you, it's the next element of how close we can get them to a live person on my admissions team in order to speak with them. So it's that second piece as well. We don't want to send out a message that says, "Hi, how are you? We'll be in touch with you shortly," and shortly is 8 hours later. You know, there should be minutes or seconds in between those interactions so that you can talk to the prospect as soon as they're interested. Obviously, they're ready for us. They're sitting there. They've requested information. Best time to get them is now. Less than 2 minutes is what we strive for.
Nice. So those multiple modalities just kind of guiding them towards a live person conversation there.
Correct.
That makes sense. And I think we're going to pop up a poll really quick for the audience just to learn a little bit more about them before we jump into speed to lead more. So everyone joining us, which area is the biggest challenge for you right now? Is it speed to lead? Is it engaging the leads? Is it getting them to show up for campus tours or interviews? Or is it converting the people who do show up into enrollments ultimately? What are you seeing? And in a couple seconds, Rishik will turn on the results for me and I'll be able to relay that to everyone. And while we're waiting, the next thing, oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. So for the most part, 40% of you said you're most concerned about people showing up for booked meetings or interviews or campus tours. That's the biggest challenge. And then the second largest is lead engagement, so getting them to interact with you. Converting meetings to enrollments is the third largest at about 30%. And then the least concern is speed to lead. So that's very interesting. Okay, perfect. So we will tailor our conversation to those results. Thank you so much. We discussed a little bit about speed to lead. I'd like to hear from Jay, if you could kick us off. Why do you feel like speed to lead is important, but why is it not the only factor in successful student enrollment?
Yeah, so speed to lead obviously is one of the most important factors because you're meeting a student when they're ready to engage. They're searching for, in my case, a new career, a new lifestyle, a better lifestyle. This is hot on their mind at the moment. Obviously, most of our students can be distracted quickly, whether it's childcare, household issues, etc. So you want to make sure that you get to them quickly, but it's not the most important factor, as you said. I think that the most important factor is that real connection that you make within a conversation or that initial conversation with a student. So say, for instance, a student wants to speak with you, you can have a script that's good, but I don't think that the advisors or reps should go straight from a script. They should have a conversation just like we would with anyone else that we meet in any environment. So I think it's about a personalized conversation, which will truly help that show rate if you just have a conversation. Don't ask questions and then leave it flat and ask the next question and leave it flat. Just like you would have a conversation if you met someone new at the ballpark, you want to have that same type of conversation and interject your questions as the conversation allows.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, and also the speed to lead is important, but what are you engaging them with, right? What is the messaging? What is the content? What are you trying to get them to do when you do get to them, right? So I'd love to talk a little bit about that as well. I mean, do you have, and maybe Stephanie, you can jump in on this, do you have suggestions on the type of things that you are using to engage students to get them to talk to a live person? Or what does the content look like when you're trying to engage students and get them
Yeah,
to move step?
that's a great question. And I really think that your technology, integrating your technology from your front end platforms to your CRMs really help go down that avenue and get the admissions representatives with as much information about that potential student in front of their face so they can ask those open-ended questions regarding the program or the type of student that they are. Are they a military or a high school or a working professional? And then you can also work that into your segmentation of your admissions force. Do you have groups that are working on specific programs or degree types or the demographic of students? So the more that we can learn about the student upfront in the marketing funnel and push that over to their CRM and get that in front of them to establish that connection. So you just don't feel that you're getting pushed into front of somebody and you're starting from that conversation from scratch. I think will really help with more of that connection with that admissions rep and further that student along in the enrollment funnel.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And so Jennifer, how are you using what Stephanie mentioned? Like, do you have program specific advisors? What kind of data are you collecting on the front end to make sure your admissions advisors are prepared to have these like meaningful conversations with students?
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually set up our internal technology so that we have call routing and text routing and chat routing so that people are able to engage with us in the way that works for them and talk to an expert in that topic. So, for example, our online admissions team is broken down into, different schools of. They've got programs that they're highly trained on, and we can get the student in touch with a live person who's specialized in their program in the way that makes sense for them. So having that call routing set up, having the integration with a really top tier CRM so that you can find the information you need, it's readily available, and it can lead to a really natural conversation. And where you can do, as Jay said, really get to the meat and potatoes and not follow a script, but have the information in front of you, and be able to have that conversation that really is engaging to your prospective student.
Awesome. Jay, do you have any example questions that you may ask that are a little more probing? You may ask the student to kind of get the conversation going.
Yeah, obviously, we always ask open-ended fact-finding questions, right? So you ask the question about, so tell me where you are in life right now. Tell me about your educational background. Tell me about what drove you to be interested in Lincoln Tech today. So when you're having a one-on-one conversation, you want to just let it be open enough so that they can answer your questions. You don't want a yes or no question. Obviously, it's not going to be helpful. And then back to the automations. Your automations, like a text or an email or any other kind of communication that you're doing, those need to be written like you're a human, not like a robot. They need to have, the student's first name in there. So, hi, John. How are you? This is Jay with Lincoln Tech. Even if it's automated for John at Lincoln Tech, so that we're already building a relationship with that student. So when they arrive on site, this pre-messaging has already set them up with a start foundation for a relationship. But yeah, it's always open-ended, fact-finding questions that just allow the conversation to start. Just like you would, how's the weather? Wow, it snowed a lot yesterday. The same thing, just general conversation to open up to have a beginning relationship.
Perfect. And I just see a question that came in the chat, and I'm kind of curious about it. Does anyone use a chat tool or a bot to interact with students upon like the initial interaction?
No, we always have a live person. So we've got a 24/7 support team. Someone can maybe specify who they'd like to talk with, but there's always a person there that's ready to help and support them.
Yeah, we do the same. We have a live chat team that's on site, and they handle all incoming questions. Now, they have pre-scripted questions because we know the typical questions that we're going to get on a chat. So we've scripted some out so they can copy and paste to make it a little easier for them. But no chat bots. We don't do any automated dialing. All of our dialing is done by our staff. We stay away from that element of it because the time between pickup and actually someone being there, or the time between a message and someone responding, it has to be instantaneous, or you're going to lose your customer quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to go back to something Jennifer said earlier too about this kind of meeting the student where they're at or how they want to communicate with you, right? All of these different multiple modalities. Have you seen a shift in the past like 5 or 10 years on how people are preferring to communicate with your population at least?
We definitely have. We still always offer the ability to call in and talk to us, but people are changing the way that they communicate. And it's not just with us. People are changing the way they communicate with all different companies, right? And, I'll throw Amazon out there as an example. If I have to return something, I'm texting, it's all automated. I don't have to talk to someone. But we always make sure that there is someone that you could talk to if you want to. And we've really found that our students are expecting that same ability to pivot that these larger companies have. Sometimes they want to be able to text with us or chat with us, and other times they want to be able to call us on the phone. But we have definitely seen a shift toward more texting and chatting and getting information that isn't, voice to voice over a phone.
Yeah,
Awesome.
marketing guy.
Stephanie.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, a marketing guy one time said to me, he said, if text messaging was invented prior to the phone, we never would have invented the phone. And I kind of concur with that. I think our students probably prefer text messaging as their preferred methodology for communication. But I also think we need to address that everybody wants to do things slightly differently in today's world. Many of us may have mortgaged a home online or bought a car online. There's no reason why students can't apply and enroll and go through the financial aid process by themselves should they decide to do so. And we're going to try to move in that direction as fast as possible because we think there's a segment of our population that would just do it all on their own. And we don't need to be in the middle of it, slowing it up, gumming it up, etc.
Yeah, and I second that, right? Not all leads are created equal. So you need to have a different experience available to those students that just want to do it on their own, and not pick up the phone and have to call someone, or you do have one of those students that does need hand holding through the entire process or just wants that human connection. So being able to offer multiple modalities or options for your potential students and having those available, whether it's they're online and they've got the ability to click to, chat, click to call, input information to just receive an email back. Like Jen said, it's all about capturing them on their schedule.
Perfect. Yes. Like choose your own adventure, right? Meeting them where they're at. I love that. And I think that's a good segue into additional discussion too about one of our biggest concerns from the audience, right? Like getting people to show up for an interview or campus tour or a meeting, whatever the next step is after you reach out to them, right? And how are you using personalization and like meaningful conversations to get them to show up? Jay, could you kick us off with that one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you have to kind of meet them to ensure that they're going to show for their interview. Um, so it's not like the old school where you force them to show. You have to kind of touch it, find their space, find their convenience, and it depends on how you're talking to them. So we obviously build a good relationship on the initial phone call with that student. It's a nice open conversation. We answer any and all questions. We don't hold back. It's not the traditional sales where we're going to wait to tell you later. We also then use automations in the background to help us with that. So you get the reminder of, your appointments with us tomorrow, and then you get a reminder, hey, we'll see you today at 9, and looking forward to seeing you, John. So we do both. We use a little automation in there. We use a little human contact in there to make sure that our students are going to show for their appointment. We don't force appointments. If you force an appointment, there's no sense. John, why don't I set a time when maybe you can figure out your plans and we'll reschedule another time for you. I think it's a little better to be soft in the sale today than harder in the sale today, because what's happening is our customer is more informed. They don't really need all that data. They've already searched our websites. They know what they're looking at. So you just have to kind of meet them again where they want to be met.
That's
To
great. Steph?
piggyback on that as well, I think the building the value and the importance and why they should have an appointment, making sure they understand what they're going to get out of it, what's in it for them. We really do a lot of that when we're speaking to our prospective students and letting them know and making sure that we're listening to them, as Jay said, and recapping the reasons why they should come to the appointment. What has them interested in the first place, and making sure they feel heard and understood, and that's going to continue, if and when they come to the appointment. And as Jay said as well, feathering in those technology pieces along the way, encouraging them, reminding them, no different than your doctor's office or your dentist office does. But making sure that, this is when it's scheduled, we're hoping to see you. And then also making sure it's easy to reschedule, right? Life does happen. And if they need to change the time or the date that they're coming in, making that an easy process for them and not one that feels pressured.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, from a data standpoint, it's really interesting to also watch that in the funnel and see where those drop-offs are and how to improve upon it. So if we are seeing, a lead to meeting or a lead to enroll interview rates, drop off, is it a particular source? Is it a particular channel, demographic? How can we go in and segment that and improve that little bit in the piece to help improve then the interview to enrollment rates?
Yeah, I love that, dissecting it and kind of building out these personalized journeys depending on where they came from, maybe even how old they are, which program they're interested in, right? And doing reminders in a different way for different people.
Yeah, do you need a different nurturing strategy? Is there a different piece in the email process that they might need more information on? Or like Jen said, the ability then to go in and tweak your appointment or interview time because daycare fell through or work won't let you off. One of those.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. We are gonna kick it over to a second poll here before we continue our discussion. Okay, we want to know what your biggest challenges when you're trying to personalize student interactions? Do you feel like you don't have enough data on student preferences to personalize things? Are you having a hard time scaling the personalized communication? Or maybe you don't have the staff, or you don't have the technology to support personalization, or you're having a hard time measuring the impact and you just don't feel like it's a worthwhile endeavor, possibly. And while we're waiting for the poll results to come in, the next thing that we're going to kick off is just talking about really balancing high lead volumes and being able to tailor communications and personalize when you have so many leads. You know, you may not be able to touch every single one of them personally. How can we automate or take advantage of technology to do that? So I will cover the poll responses here. Okay. All right, it's relatively even. So most people, 34%, said that they have a lack of staff or technology to support personalization. And then the next on the list is limited data on student preferences. So maybe they're not sure how to personalize based on what the student actually wants. And those could probably go hand in hand, the lack of technology and limited data. And then the third on the list is difficulty scaling, and the fourth is measuring the impact of personalization. So we're going to cover all of these topics in our next discussion. I would love to understand, Jennifer, from you, how are you balancing high lead volumes and still able to personalize or tailor communication to the student to make it feel like they're having a one-on-one relationship when maybe they're not always directly talking to a one-on-one person?
Well, in our case, they are always talking directly to a person. So we have all of our platforms set up to be as efficient as possible. We also utilize a centralized contact center that helps and understands and can assist with a lot of the communication, right? That contact center is a multi-skilled, multifaceted team that can do the outreach, learn more about the student, have a beginning conversation with them, learn what they're interested in and what their desires and focus is, and then get them to a more highly skilled individual, either directly right away, or if the student would like to schedule another time for a callback, or texting or chatting would be easier. We find that out during our initial conversation. So we're really open with the student about wanting to engage with them in a way that they feel comfortable with, and getting that highly skilled person together with the student as quickly as we possibly can. So we really focus on asking the student questions, what's going to work best for you? What time of day works best for you? Well, how do you like to be communicated with, so that we can make sure that we're doing that? And if we call someone on the phone and they say, you know what, this isn't going to work for me, can we text instead? We're immediately able to, disposition that call, send a text message, and start that communication right up as though, nothing has changed. So we really leverage technology to enable and empower our staff to make sure that we're meeting the student where they are and accommodating a high lead volume in a fast-paced, industry. So that's been our key to success.
Perfect. Yeah. And once you get that person in conversation on the phone or over text, right, you're constantly collecting more information about them. And if you have the technology to support collecting that data, maybe putting when they like to be called or when they're available, and then the next person knows, right, when they're able to call them.
And it's really important to have that human connection, right? I use this, and I'm sounding, dated the more I use this example, but back in the day when I went to the bank, I chose which bank branch I went to based on the employee that worked behind the counter. How nice they were to me. I didn't know the branch manager. I didn't know, the general manager. I knew the person that I was interacting with and I was speaking with. So we really at Ancora have a huge focus on every interaction that the student or prospective student has with us is one where they're deciding, is this a great fit for them? So making sure that we take the time and empower our employees to make that time and effort with each person that they talk to. Making them feel welcome from Jump Street is really something that we value.
Yeah, definitely. I know I'm always personally delighted if someone I interact with remembers something about our previous interaction, right? Like,
Yep.
oh, how's your dog Birdie? How's your 4-year-old son, right? Like even small notes that you take during the
Yep.
initial conversation, someone else could see too and bring that up, and then you have that immediate connection. That's so cool. Jay, curious on your thoughts. How are you handling a large lead volume?
Yeah, we have an extremely large lead volume. We have 22 locations nationwide, and we had about 30,000 applicants last year. So we have a high lead volume. So we manage it in two ways. One is we have Lead Squared as our platform, and what they provide is the initial support for either an entering lead. So we've actually segmented out our students' flow or cycle through the entire funnel from lead to inception to start. And each one of those segments is supported by either an email messaging campaign or a live agent or rep campaign. So everything's very specific and narrowed down. Just for an example, new inquiry comes in, it hits the CRM instantaneously. There's an email that goes out. We'll be in touch with you shortly. Within 2 minutes, we have a call from our call center that goes out, leaves them a voicemail, and then we also send them a text. And then that lead, once if it's contacted, it's processed different flow. If it doesn't get contacted, it goes down another pathway, etc. So we kind of use automations to help us. Some of our inquiries, they put in their request for information. I think they're hoping for maybe a pamphlet. We email them some things. And a month later, they're now interested again. So that student may have gone into what we call a nurture campaign within our journeys. And so each one of them is customized based on where they are within the process. Such as an appointment, they get appointment reminders, etc. So we support it on both fronts, but I agree with everything Jennifer said as well. Obviously, the human touch is there, but we use technology and leverage it to support us so we don't lose anything, which allows us to keep higher conversions. So that's what we do.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I've always felt that the technology should allow the humans to do what they do best, is build relationships and have conversations, right? So that's always the goal of technology. Stephanie, any thoughts about managing high lead volume and making sure that you have that positive student experience in the initial interactions?
Yeah, we've got two great examples right here on the call, but I think Jay and Jennifer spoke, great to it. It's, segmenting your lead flow and understanding those different segmentations and demographics and how they react and interact with your admissions staff, and understanding that and how you can implement AI into that, how you leverage your technology across the board. Those are all huge pieces of the admissions puzzle that, when put together, are seamless to aid in enrollment production.
Perfect. So let's talk about how we measure this success. So what kind of metrics are you using to identify if like this human-centered engagement is actually boosting enrollments or boosting your show rate for interviews or campus tours or helping people move through the pipeline? What are you looking at data-wise? Jay, can you take that one first?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of data to look at, not only from a ROI perspective, but a productivity perspective as well. We can identify issues, concerns, and challenges with any pieces of our process, and as well as ensure that the lead flow we are getting, we are using it to the best of our ability. So we look at everything from lead to appointment, appointment to interview, interview to enroll rate, and obviously enroll to start rate. Each one of these has its own diagnostic value within our system. And you can see that if we make minor tweaks to things, so before we had a 2-minute rule, we had a 10-minute rule, had to reach out to a lead within 10 minutes. We moved our conversion by about 5 points by making sure we were in front of that lead prior to that, in that 2-minute window, 2 to 3 minute window. That's huge when you're talking about a lead base, because we can convert typically 50% of those to an interview or a booked interview at least. So, if you don't look at every segment of it, you're going to find there could be some breakage in each piece of that process, and that can damage your total ROI. But literally, if you're going to diagnose things, you want to see what your improvements could be. Just try making calls faster to your new leads. Put somebody in charge of it if you're not already doing so, and it will improve everything that you do, especially the soft emails. There's a whole bunch of little things you can do to help out improve what your end results are. Small, quick example here. If you send a happy birthday because you know their birthday or their birth month and year, a little birthday card, you'd have no idea the number of old leads we convert to new prospects and new students just because we bothered to say happy birthday. We didn't sell them anything. We didn't even give them a click. So there's all kinds of things that you can slowly change throughout your process that'll just improve every element of it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, everyone has a birthday, right? It's a very human thing, and you're really pushing that human-centered interaction. And I love the soft sell, like not selling anything at all, just reaching out. Hope you have a great day. And I feel like that just makes them realize that there is a human on the other end as well, right?
Yep.
Stephanie, what kind of metrics are you focusing on to show success in these areas?
You give me all of your data, I will find something to show for you. We at Level love to take all of the client data that we can get our hands on and find new points of either drop-offs or, hey, this is working really well. Let's look into and dive into this. Maybe it's, lead to interview, and lead to interview rate is really strong, but we're having within a certain program or demographic, our interview to enroll rate is dropping off. So what are the touch points within that particular, flow that are hindering the enrollment process? We'll look, we look at our CPLs, we look at our CPEs, but we're also looking at velocity. How many enrollments are we getting within the first 7 days and the first 15? Is that different between our lead sources, or is that, different at a degree or a program level? And then how can we utilize that in our media buying and our forecasting to help Jennifer and Jay build out their, start funnel for the next quarter? Hey, we think we can fulfill our, MBC and medical assisting starts with no problem. It's going to be the higher degree levels that are going to take a little bit more time to nurture. We're seeing longer time to enroll on that front. So it really is dependent upon the type of school and the type of program, but looking at those little pieces of it, and like Jay said, finding those low-hanging fruit to improve performance across the board.
Awesome. Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit more about how you try new things and measure the impact of those. But before we get into that, there's actually a really good question in the chat. And Scott is asking how you recommend tracking speed to lead metrics if you don't have a 24/7 call center and leads come in on weekends or after campus hours. How do you handle that situation?
My suggestion, since I'm the one responsible for speed to lead at our corporation, and we're under 30 seconds is how quickly we are placing a phone call and reaching out with a person. So my recommendation would be having 2 separate speed to lead metrics. Taking a look at your speed to lead during campus operations. How quickly and how efficiently are you reaching out to people while you're open? And then also taking a look at your overall speed to lead and including weekend and after hours, and seeing what the different experience is. Would it be worthwhile having someone that can make calls or help with that speed to lead on the weekend? So I think my suggestion would be to look at it both ways and then analyze the data and see where you can improve.
Awesome. And Jennifer, any additional thoughts on other metrics to review to understand success here outside of the speed to lead? What are you looking at?
Oh my gosh, we're a really data-centric company. So we've segmented out the entire student process all the way through graduation and beyond. What are we doing post-graduation to help and support these students? So we really have a robust funnel of the entire student experience, all the way from, hey, I think I'm interested, to I need a job. Is there a job board or someplace that you can help me with that? So we really nurture our students and have data sets that look at that entire experience. And we break those down by, the lead origin, where they came from, what program they were initially interested in, where they're located in the country, and how they like to be communicated with. So we have a very robust set of KPIs, and I would suggest making sure that you're doing that and tying the most important KPIs to actual activities that are happening with the student, right? Jay talked about the nurture campaigns, and if someone's contacted, they're treated differently, and they should be. They're at a different point in their journey than someone who you haven't talked to yet. So making sure that at those big milestones throughout that process, that you're really focusing on where they're at and what type of support that they need at that point in time.
Perfect. And so as you're kind of slicing and dicing this student journey, and maybe you identify an area of weakness or area of improvement, what do you suggest to the audience? Like, how do you try new things and measure whether or not it's something you should continue doing? Are you trying multiple things at once? Are you just doing one at a time to see the impact? What's your strategy there?
We love trying new things. It's something I'm really passionate about, right? You won't know until you try it. So for us, we're very methodical in our data collection, right? We've recently launched microsites, and it's a different way for our students to interact with us and get that personalized interaction immediately after they're clicking to request information. So it's important to try new things and document what you're doing and keep really good track of, I made this change, I tried this here. We've been working on A/B testing with our text campaigns. Do people like words? Do people like pictures? And that can be different from state to state. We've seen that there are people in, specific programs that really prefer just a quick, short, and to the point message, whereas other people like the pictures and the graphics. So it's all about A/B testing and thinking outside the box, and maybe asking people you normally wouldn't ask, what do they think? How would you like to be messaged to, and what would really be effective for you? So but data keeping and tracking when you make changes and what the outcomes of things are, that's the most important part to testing and trying new things, which I strongly suggest.
Awesome. Thank you. Jay, can you tell us a little bit about how you all are trying new things and how you measure the impact there?
Yeah, so it's funny. It's two elements here. Number one is what we do is we have a pretty massive data set, and we constantly are flipping our data set around and looking for nuances within that data set. It's like speed to lead, for example. When you look at it and you say, okay, well, what is the appointment set rate for a lead within 2 minutes, within 5 minutes, within 20 minutes, and you start segmenting your data out, it becomes evident in sometimes the direction you go. Yesterday someone asked me the question about propensity to start school based on distance from the campus. So we've just segmented our data out again. We said, okay, if you're less than 20 miles, you start at X. If you're greater than or less than 30, you start at Y. And we went all the way out to see what the impacts are. And then we wanted to look at it by age. So you have to constantly look at your data. That's number one. Number two, I would tell you that if you're, depending on the size of your organization, you want to try things in small pieces. You don't ever want to interrupt your business, especially if it's performing well, right? You may want to perform great, but to get to great, you have to perform well, and then segment off pieces of it to try something new and completely different. And then monitor it. Does it work? It's okay. Don't be afraid of that failure. Back up, start over, try something different. But I think it's important to slowly step into certain things. I can do it a little faster because I'm a bigger organization. So I can take one campus and just say, go do this for the week. We can go back, we can look at what the data says, we can change our process or pivot right back to the old process. It's no big deal. I also know the skill set of each of those teams, so I can adjust what I'm going to give them, just like you would with a rep. We know one rep's better here and better there. Maybe we give them this project and this rep this project. So I think it's important that you pick who you're going to have do it, pick smaller pieces, know your data, and then go back to your data. Your data doesn't lie. If you're fighting your data, you're wasting your time. Pay attention to your data.
I love that. That's, yes, a very important message. And then also, you know, if things are going well, don't don't try to break them,
Don't
right?
break it.
Stephanie, how are you trying new things and helping your clients kind of identify areas of opportunity and measuring the impact there? Any advice for the audience?
Oh, all day long. No, but I think it's really important to look at both the quantitative data that we, receive back from our clients. We say, you just give us everything, we'll find a way to make it work. But I think on the school side, we need to also be looking at the qualitative side. What is student satisfaction rates? Polling your current students and understanding how they got through the admissions process, and really looking and seeing at those data points that Jay talked about of how to improve upon what's really working. So you know not to throw data out the window, but it's really looking at kind of the students that are already on your campuses or within your programs and what made them successful, and trying to replicate that again and again. But from a marketing standpoint, we're looking at everything from page conversion rates, engagement metrics, all the way down to lifetime value. If we can get revenue per program, or at least revenue by degree type. So like Jay said, every piece of data is really important, and the more data, the better you can slice it and reverse engineer it, the more you're going to learn and grow.
Hey, Lauren, can I add one thing to this conversation? I think this is important, and the only reason why I jump in here is because I like to say to everyone, and that's perfect, Stephanie, don't be married to your data either. Don't be married to a piece of your data that you think should be X. I hear a lot of people talk about start rate sometimes, right? You can impact start rate without question. It's a measurement of after the game, obviously, though, right? So, but maybe I impact my enrollment number positively, and I take on 100 more enrollments, and I start only 20 more students, and my start rate drops by 5 points. In my opinion, we started 5 more students. So my opinion is we did better for ourselves. If you get married to start rate, however, you start to look to pinch the funnel at the beginning of the process before the funnel allows to weed out those within the funnel, those that can't finish financial aid, those that aren't going to be to the campus 3 times, or show up at orientation, or their car doesn't make it, or they have a medical experience. Don't get married to your data that it has to look perfect. Sometimes winning doesn't look pretty. Sometimes winning can be ugly data set, but your conversion, like mine, I convert lead to enroll at about 13%. And sometimes my start rate doesn't look so pretty. But in the end, we've helped as many people as we can help get through the process. And those that couldn't avoid the challenges or make it through the challenges to get to school, we lost them. We'll try to pick them up again later. So don't be married to your data. Don't be so opinionated that our start rate has to be 80% or we're not doing a good job. Don't get married like that. It's not good.
Yeah, fantastic sage advice. And I think really important to not get too hung up on rates either, right? Because just like you said, the net number could be higher overall, which is a win just because your rate went down. So really important. As we kind of wrap up the discussion, I want to hear from Jennifer and Stephanie, and Jay too, if you have anything else to add, but just any kind of additional advice for the audience on human-centered interaction and helping with speed to lead and getting people to show up for meetings and then ultimately enroll and graduate as well. Jennifer.
I think my advice, would be to listen to people, right? People want to be heard at any point in their life. I know I want to be heard. Your prospective students want to be heard. Your students want to be heard. And when they talk to you, listen to what they're telling you and what they'd like from you. They're probably already telling you. You might just not have heard them. So making sure that you're really paying attention to the data, paying attention to what you're hearing, and supplementing what you're doing with technology as you can, right? We're all human, and humans sometimes forget things. Technology and campaigns do not. So, Jay talked a lot about feathering in technology, and we do the same, making sure that there's a text message going out. So maybe if that call didn't happen, at the right time, we're still communicating and we're still keeping in touch with those people who are counting on us to help them through this, really scary stage of their life in some instances. Very exciting, but it's also very scary. So, just listening and being open to trying new things.
That's great.
Really well said, Jennifer. I really think that a human-centered engagement strategy is going to propel a lot of these companies moving forward, especially as they start to lean into AI and automation. But it will also kind of speed up the decision-making process on your front end, on your marketing investment, your admissions and investment. It should allow companies to be a little bit more flexible and agile and in turning the corner on problematic areas or gaps and fulfilling a need that maybe we weren't able to see 10, 20 years ago.
Yep. Jennifer and Stephanie, spot on. I'll add one more thing. We all want to look at our revenue stream. Obviously, that's the most important metric in our business. But I'm going to argue that before you look at your revenue stream, you should look at yourself in your honesty and your integrity. And are you doing the right thing with every student and individual you interact with? And are you caretaking them appropriately? If you do that front end first, that piece first on the front end, the rest of it will fall into place for you. It's all about how you caretake your customer. If you caretake them as you would wish to be caretaked, even if that's sometimes telling you, sorry, you can't come to school right now, it's not right for you. If you caretake them appropriately, your business will flourish. And you will see the return on your investment in the back end. And automations and human interaction will ultimately win the day for you. Without each of those things, you won't make it into the next 21st century, 23rd century, whatever it is, because you're just not going to have the speed to keep up with the changes that we see on a day-to-day basis. So embrace change. It's going to come faster and faster for our organization, and do the right thing would be my suggestions.
Those are all fantastic suggestions. Thank you so much. We're going to allow the audience to ask a few questions here. While I'm sifting through the questions, we're going to have you guys answer a third and final poll. If you could pop that up for us, Rushik, please. We do have a personalized lead engagement solution. Just curious if you're interested in learning more about it, and we'll reach out to you later if you say yes. I'm looking through questions. There's been a lot of chatter, which is amazing.
Lauren, I did see one about spam, about emails and email campaigns, and maybe I'll just jump in while you're looking for one. But we don't worry about them so much because they're going to get shut off. You're going to get unsubscribed. It's a passive methodology. I will tell you that the better you write your emails and the more personalized they are as in reference to program and like a student name or something like that, it will caretake them a little better, and you may not get the spam thing. Most of the time, you're going to get spams from all the unsubscribes.
I would add to that as well, making sure that when you're sending email messages, you do have a clear message, right? You don't want people to unsubscribe. You're reaching out to them with a purpose, not just to reach out to them. So providing information and providing support with your emails will help keep your unsubscribe rate low and make it through spam.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions. I did see a lot of people love that winning doesn't always look pretty. Good consensus there. If you have other questions, please throw them in the chat. Let's see. Someone asked how you're using AI in your processes, and maybe now or how you plan to use it in the future. Jay, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, we are touching into it. We're not really using a ton of it at the moment. What we do with AI at the moment is we love the fact we can take a message, we can dump it into your GBT chat, for instance, and you can say, rewrite this for me. And there's no spelling, there's no punctuation issues. It's a perfect message. I don't really like it. Can you make it softer? It rewrites it, and it's fabulous. I am looking for a way to kind of institute that in with my email, i.e., here's John Smith, write him a new message, and maybe we can get those messages even narrower. But at the moment, we're just using it to help and aid with our messaging that we are doing. some of the PowerPoints we set up, some of the other items. We're using it as a tool more than we're going to be using it for a recruitment piece at the moment.
I would second that as well. We're really using it to help support our staff and their messaging and support, you know, their work day and what they're doing. So we've really been using AI in much the same way that Jay is.
And similar, we're experimenting with looking at translation of call scripts and chat scripts and finding, you know, high frequency keywords or questions that potential students have. And then how can we tailor our ad messaging or our search term and keywords to really kind of connect the dots between what students are talking about and asking about with admissions reps, and putting those more on the front end in terms of awareness or, you know, or messaging, and trying to capture more of that on the front end.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be really cool for coaching as well, right? If you're able to look at like sentiment or chat or conversation transcripts and coach your team on handling things in a different way.
We do use that. We do have AI supported in our quality assurance platform, but it's supplemental, not the main way that we're looking at performance.
Awesome. Okay, another question came in. What are your thoughts regarding text blasts? Are they kind of this, you handle them the same as email blasts or different strategy there? Do you use them?
Yeah, we use them, and everyone should use them. Obviously, it's the #1 method of communication at the moment. You have to be careful to stay within the carrier rules. You want to make sure you're following the TCPA rules, the FCC rules, in order to keep yourself from being, you know, delisted by a carrier, and then you have to fix it. But the best way to do it is, some of the best practices are, #1, make sure that the message is personal in nature, i.e., hi Jennifer. Make sure that what you're doing is you're not doing major solicitation, like, hey, send us X. Those things can be problematic. And I would not do it at frequencies that are massive. Like, your reps can get banned or their numbers turned off or deactivated based on the number of volume of messages they send, if they're snipping and pasting and not putting the first name there, because they start to look like spam. So you have to be careful. The carriers pay attention. You can get yourself in a little bit of trouble. We did a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't that we did anything on purpose. It's that when you're sending out mass numbers of messages, they have to kind of be different in some way. So just set your system up in automations to show their first name instead, and you'll save yourself a lot of headaches.
Perfect. Thank you. Jennifer or Stephanie, any comments about text blasts you want to share?
We use them all the time. And, you know, I'll second what Jay said, but we're very precise in what we're sending out, the length of what we're sending out, you know, making sure it's appropriate to where the student is in the funnel, you know, what messaging will work for them. But we also use text blasts to talk about new programs that we're offering, community events that are happening on campus. So we really utilize text heavily, not just, you know, at the beginning of the funnel, but also throughout the entire life cycle. So people are used to getting text messages from us. Sometimes they're individual, and sometimes they're a part of a larger blast.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree with what they said. And, you know, if you're in doubt, test, throw it out there, pick a campus, pick a rep, you know, put 2 reps up against each other, put 2 campuses up against each other. But the data won't lie at the back end. So test to your heart's delight.
Perfect. All right. Well, we're right about at time. Thank you so much, Jay, Jennifer, and Stephanie. You've been fantastic panelists. Thanks to the audience for all of the chatter and the Q&A. And I hope to see you on another webinar soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.